The research station hung silently above the lavender clouds of planet Erythra. Its metallic walls reflected the soft light of the twin suns, and inside machines hummed with purpose. Humanity had come far in its exploration of the stars, but the frontier was never easy. Some of the greatest mysteries awaited not in distant black holes, but in the fragile, living worlds beneath their feet. Dr. Alara Miles walked along the main observation deck, her eyes scanning the holographic displays of alien life forms. The Shillians, the planet's most intriguing inhabitants, moved with delicate precision. Their bodies were lit with faint bioluminescence, shifting colors with each emotion, each subtle movement conveying layers of meaning. Yet, no matter how advanced Earth's translators were, their words failed to capture the depth of this alien language. "Another day, another failed attempt," muttered a young technician, Joran, leaning over a neural interface terminal. "They still don't respond to our vocal commands. It's like they don't even understand us." Ilara shook her head, brushing loose strands of brown hair behind her ear. "That's because we're trying to speak a language they never learned," she said gently. "We need to listen with more than our ears. Our bodies, our instincts, they may be the key." The Shillians were unlike any life humans had encountered. Without vocal cords, they could not speak as humans did. Yet their world was rich with ideas expressed through subtle pulses, gestures, and movements of the entire body. To most humans, these signals were indecipherable. But for Ilara, and surprisingly for Lieutenant Kale, there was a strange resonance. Kale's movements mirrored the Shillians without conscious effort, and they responded to him as if he were one of their own. Kyle stood at the observation window, gazing at a small group of Shillians exploring the station's outer gardens. His posture was calm but alert, his eyes following every shift in their glowing limbs. "They're nervous today," he said softly. "Something's changing. Do you feel it too?" Ilara asked. Kale nodded. "Yes, I can almost feel their hesitation in my own body." Ilara studied him carefully. Kale's ability was rare. Most humans could not perceive or reflect the alien signals. It was more than empathy. It was instinctive understanding, a bridge between two species separated by millions of years of evolution. The morning passed in a mix of observation and cautious experiments. The team used neural suits to capture micro-expressions, subtle vibrations, and bioluminescent changes. The data streamed into the station's central computer, converting the Shillians' body language into visual patterns. But the translation was crude at best. Humans still could not grasp the nuance. Then it happened. A sudden shift in the Shillians' behavior rippled through the garden. They scattered, moving with purpose and urgency. The neural suits detected heightened signals, and Ilara's heart skipped a beat as the patterns formed an unmistakable warning. "A storm," she whispered, reading the charts. "A planetary storm is approaching fast. We have less than 2 hours." The station alarms failed to trigger immediately. Their systems relied on automated weather readings, not instinctive warnings from alien beings. If not for Kale's connection, the team might have missed the signal entirely. Kale stepped forward, hands raised in the Shillian's reflective gesture of alert. The nearest alien mirrored him almost instantly, bioluminescent patches flashing brightly across its torso. Others followed. It was a ripple spreading across the garden like water disturbed by a stone. "Move the research crews," Ilara shouted, her voice carrying over the comms. "Seal the decks. Evacuate the outer platforms." The team scrambled, guided not by machines, but by Kyle and the Shillians' instinctive warnings. The storm arrived as predicted, a violent sweep of electric winds and crimson clouds battering the station's shields. Equipment shook, lights flickered, and emergency protocols screamed over the intercom. Yet, thanks to the early warning, no one was injured. The Shillians' silent communication had saved lives. After the storm passed, the station was quiet. Dust and debris floated in the artificial gravity, and the Shillians gathered near the main observation deck, their glowing bodies dimming in exhaustion. Kale knelt beside one, placing a hand gently on its arm. "They're scared," he said, "but they did their part, and we listened. That's what matters." Ilara joined him, feeling a swell of pride. Humanity has always relied on tools, machines, and data. But today we learned that understanding doesn't always come from devices. Sometimes it comes from connection, pure empathy. For hours, the two species remained in quiet observation, studying each other. Ilara began to map the Shillians' gestures more carefully, noticing patterns she had missed before. A flick of a limb meant alert. A subtle tilt conveyed curiosity. A rhythmic pulse indicated agreement. Words were unnecessary. Their bodies spoke volumes. Yet the real breakthrough was Kale. No one could replicate his intuitive harmony with the Shillians. When he moved, they moved. When he stopped, they paused. In a way, he had become a translator without needing a translator. A living bridge between two worlds. Night fell over Erythra, though the twin suns cast long, lingering shadows. The station's observation deck glowed with soft, artificial light. Ilara and Kale reviewed the day's data, still awed by the storm's warning and the Shillians' cooperation. "This changes everything," Ilara said, scrolling through the neural patterns. "If we can harness this, if humans can learn to truly communicate without words, imagine what we can achieve. Not just here, but everywhere." Kale smiled faintly. "It's not just about learning. It's about feeling. Our bodies, our instincts, they're part of the language too. The Shillians didn't teach us anything we didn't already carry inside ourselves. We just had to pay attention." A sudden chime interrupted their reflection. The station's AI, usually monotone, displayed a simple message. New communication patterns detected. Human-Shillian correlation increasing. Ilara felt a thrill of excitement. It was confirmation. The experiment was succeeding beyond anyone's expectations. Humanity, often known for its ingenuity and intellect, was showing its greatest strength in a simple, overlooked skill: empathy. As the crew settled for the night, the Shillians' soft pulses dimmed to a gentle rhythm, like a heartbeat shared between worlds. Outside, Erythra's clouds swirled peacefully, no longer threatening but alive with possibility. The storm had passed, but the real journey was just beginning. Ilara gazed at Kale, then at the glowing aliens around him. "Tomorrow we start again, and this time we'll listen more closely than ever." Kyle nodded, his expression calm yet determined. "They've already spoken," he said softly. "All we have to do is watch before we delete the message. Their bodies tell what words never could." And in that moment, humanity understood something profound. Intelligence was not only measured by words or machines, but by the courage to connect, to mirror, and to feel. The Shillians pulsed gently in response, and Ilara knew they had just witnessed the first true bridge between two species. The morning light of Erythra filtered through the station's observation windows, painting the decks with shades of gold and lavender. The storm had passed, but its aftermath lingered in the air, a mixture of tension, wonder, and possibility. For Dr. Ilara Miles and Lieutenant Kale, the day was not for rest. It was for understanding. "Today we go to the surface," Ilara said, her voice steady as she addressed the team. "We need to establish a small research outpost, one that allows us to interact with the Shillians more closely. The storm reminded us that distance makes communication fragile. We need presence." The crew prepared for descent. Suits were checked, equipment loaded, and neural interfaces synced. Kale adjusted his gloves, feeling the subtle pulses of the Shillians through the interface. Their signals were calm but cautious, warning of hidden dangers in the terrain below. Unlike the crew, Kale didn't just read these signals, he felt them. When the shuttle landed, the alien landscape unfolded like a living painting. Crimson grass swayed under the twin suns, and delicate, translucent trees bent with a strange, almost musical resonance. The Shillians moved gracefully among the flora, their luminescent patterns reflecting the soft light. Kale knelt beside a Shillian scout. "Take me to the safest path," he said softly, following its subtle cues. The alien's limbs pulsed in a rhythm that only Kale seemed to interpret fully. As they moved, the rest of the crew struggled to match their speed and coordination. "Kyle, how are you doing that?" asked Joran, still fumbling with his suit controls. "They don't answer anything I do." Kale glanced back. "You're thinking in words. I'm thinking in rhythm. Watch their movements, then mirror them. That's how they speak." Ilara watched silently, proud but concerned. Kale's gift was powerful, but over-reliance on one person created risk. Still, the efficiency was undeniable. The path ahead was cleared faster than any computer-guided mapping could achieve. Hours passed as the team explored. The Shillians guided them through the forest, alerting them to natural hazards, shifting terrain, poisonous spores, and hidden sinkholes. Each signal was subtle, tilts of a limb, quick flashes of light, tiny vibrations, but Kale interpreted them as instinctively as breathing. The first real challenge came when they reached a canyon. A narrow bridge of natural rock spanned its width, worn and fragile. The Shillians stopped, signaling caution. Kale stepped forward, moving slowly, mirroring their body language. One by one, the Shillians followed his motions, their glows pulsing softly in encouragement. The humans hesitated. Ilara stepped carefully, her body mirroring Kale's movements, feeling for each subtle shift. Others watched the Shillians, gradually learning the rhythm. Suddenly, a tremor shook the bridge. Rocks fell, clattering into the canyon below. Panic swept through the team, but Kyle held his position, steady and calm. "Trust the rhythm," he said. "Mirror their signals. Move as one." By synchronizing with the Shillians, the humans crossed safely. The team realized the significance. Survival was no longer about machines or shields. It was about humans trusting instincts, observing carefully, and moving together with another species. As the day wore on, the research outpost began to take shape. Modular shelters were erected, powered by renewable energy harvested from the environment. The Shillians assisted in ways humans could not fully comprehend. Their movements suggested where structures should be placed, how natural resources could be used without harm, and even where to plant crops that thrived in the alien soil. Ilara took notes frantically, realizing that the Shillians' subtle communications were a sophisticated form of engineering and planning. "They're teaching us without words," she murmured to Kale. "Every gesture is a lesson." Kale nodded, observing a Shillian pattern that indicated water flow. "They've been living in harmony with this planet far longer than we imagined. They know balance instinctively, but not all humans shared the same respect." A faction of the research team, led by Commander Soren, grew impatient. "We can't rely on these gestures forever," he argued. "We are humans. We have technology. We should control the environment, force results if we have to." Ilara frowned. "Control is not understanding. If we ignore their guidance, we risk everything." The storm proved that. "The Shillians can warn us, but only if we listen." Soren's group pushed forward with their own plans, constructing additional equipment and attempting to override the Shillians' guidance. Disaster struck quickly. They unknowingly disturbed a hidden nest of native predators. The creatures, sensing danger, lunged toward the humans. Kale reacted instinctively, mirroring the Shillians' defensive postures. The aliens responded, creating a protective formation around the crew. The predators, confused by the coordinated display of movement, retreated. Soren and his team were shaken but unharmed. Ilara stepped forward, her voice firm. "This is what I meant. Technology alone cannot replace understanding. We survived because we listened. We survived because Kale understood, because we trusted their signals." The incident became a turning point. Even the skeptics began to follow Kale's lead, learning to mirror the Shillians' gestures. What started as instinctive coordination grew into a system of communication that no translator could replicate. Over the next several days, the humans and Shillians learned to work as a single unit. Tasks that had seemed impossible were accomplished effortlessly, mapping the terrain, setting up sustainable systems, even establishing basic educational modules for humans to understand the planet's ecosystem. One evening, Kale and Ilara sat beside a glowing Shillian pool, watching the bioluminescent creatures ripple in the water. "Do you ever wonder," Ilara asked quietly, "if we could have survived here without them?" Kale shook his head. "Not really. Humans are clever, yes, but intelligence alone isn't enough. Empathy, observation, patience, that's what keeps us alive in a world like this. The Shillians taught us that, and they didn't even speak a single word." The Shillians pulsed softly as if acknowledging his words. Their gestures were elegant, almost musical, and Kale felt each one resonate in his body. He realized that communication was more than language. It was a shared rhythm of life, a way to align two species so they could survive and thrive together. Challenges continued, of course. The environment was unpredictable, and new threats emerged daily. But the humans adapted. The neural interfaces became more sophisticated, capturing finer details of the Shillians' movements. Crew members who had once relied entirely on technology began to develop their own sensitivity, learning to anticipate signals rather than just read them. Ilara documented every breakthrough. "This is more than science," she said to Kale one night. "It's philosophy, sociology, and evolution all at once. We're learning what it means to truly coexist, not dominate." Kyle smiled faintly, and it all started with listening. Watching, feeling. Humans have always been problem solvers, but now we're learners too. As night fell over the alien landscape, the Shillians gathered around the outpost, their glows illuminating the shelters with soft, comforting light. The humans, now moving in harmony with them, felt a sense of unity they had never known before. The real lesson of the day was clear. Survival was not about weapons or shields, machines or formulas. It was about understanding, trust, and the courage to step outside one's own limitations. Kale, once just a soldier, had become the bridge between worlds, and through him, humanity was beginning to see what it truly meant to communicate beyond words. Alara looked out over the glowing forms of the Shillians, her mind buzzing with possibilities. "Tomorrow we'll explore further," she said softly. "We'll push our limits, learn more, and keep listening. This planet has secrets, and if we respect them, it may teach us more than we ever imagined." Kyle nodded, feeling the rhythm of the Shillian's pulses in his chest. "And we will listen," he said, "because some messages cannot be spoken. They must be watched, felt, and understood." For the first time, humanity was not just observing life on another world. They were part of it, and in doing so, they discovered that the greatest power of all was not in machines, weapons, or knowledge, but in the ability to connect, to empathize, and to speak without speaking at all. The Shillians pulsed in quiet harmony around them, and the humans for the first time truly understood. Weeks had passed since the humans had first set foot on the surface of Erythra. The storm that had once threatened the research station was now a distant memory, replaced by a rhythm of cooperation between humans and Shillians. The outpost had grown from a few modular shelters to a small, thriving hub where every gesture, pulse, and movement carried meaning. Dr. Alara Miles walked along the central walkway, observing the activity. Humans moved carefully, mirroring the Shillians' gestures, learning to read subtle signals that conveyed everything from joy to caution. The Shillians responded in kind, glowing and pulsing as if celebrating this new understanding. Lieutenant Kale stood nearby, his eyes following a group of Shillians as they coordinated the installation of a new energy collector. He moved with them seamlessly, reflecting their rhythm, anticipating their next motion before it happened. Watching him, it was as if he were no longer human and Shillian separately, but a living bridge between the two species. Alara approached him, smiling. "They're teaching all of us now," she said softly. "Even those who doubted." Kale nodded, observing a young human crew member mirroring the Shillians' gestures for the first time successfully. "They just need to open themselves," he said. "Once they trust their instincts, they can understand. They don't need words." The progress was remarkable. Humans had begun to grasp the Shillians' nonverbal language. They learned to anticipate environmental changes, identify hazards, and even coordinate complex tasks without speaking. The Shillians, in turn, began sharing aspects of their culture. Patterns of light conveyed history, philosophy, and even artistic expression. Humans were recording everything, realizing that this was a new kind of knowledge, one that could not be captured by words alone. One evening, a new challenge arose. A previously unknown alien species appeared on the outskirts of the outpost. Larger than the Shillians, with armored shells and multiple limbs, the newcomers initially displayed aggressive postures. Their movements were sharp and fast, signaling hostility. Panic rippled through the human crew. Commander Soren, who had once resisted following the Shillians' lead, reached for a weapon. "They're hostile," he said. "We can't negotiate. We have to defend ourselves." Kyle stepped forward, holding up his hands in the Shillians' gesture of peace. The aliens hesitated, their movements shifting in uncertainty. The Shillians pulsed in synchrony, their bioluminescence softening, communicating calm. Alara joined Kyle, her voice firm. "We don't need to fight," she said. "We communicate in ways they might understand, without words. Trust me. Trust them." Kyle mirrored the Shillians' movements, slowly approaching the new species. At first their limbs tensed, but as he continued, matching their rhythm and mirroring their gestures, the tension began to ease. The humans watched in awe as hostility dissolved into curiosity. The new aliens, though different, began to respond to Kale and the Shillians' nonverbal language. For hours, the humans and the two alien species engaged in silent communication. Every movement, every pulse of light became a message. Gradually, a shared understanding emerged. The humans realized that intelligence was not just the ability to build machines or speak words. It was the ability to perceive, empathize, and connect. The next morning, the outpost celebrated its first joint cultural festival. Humans and Chileans gathered in the central plaza, a glowing garden filled with bioluminescent flora. Humans mirrored Chilean gestures, producing light and rhythm through coordinated movement. Children, both human and Chilean, danced together, exploring this language of motion and pulse. Kale stood at the center, watching, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. He remembered the first day he had stepped onto the surface when words had failed and only instinct could save them. Now he realized that humanity had grown, not because of technology or force, but because they had learned to listen, observe, and connect. Ilara joined him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We've come far," she said. "Not just in science, but in understanding. Humanity's strength, it's more than intelligence. It's empathy, intuition, and the courage to act on what we feel." Kale smiled. "And it's just the beginning. We're learning to communicate in ways no one thought possible. This will change how humans interact with every world we visit." The Chileans pulsed in unison, a rhythm that seemed to echo the heartbeat of the planet itself. Humans had begun to replicate it, creating patterns that conveyed emotion, stories, and shared experience. Every gesture was a conversation. Every pulse was a wordless sentence. Weeks turned into months, and the outpost flourished. Humans and Chileans built together, learned together, and celebrated together. The new alien species remained nearby, now allies, sharing knowledge of the terrain and the hidden resources of Erythra. Ilara documented everything meticulously. She realized that this experience could redefine humanity's role in the galaxy. Technology alone was never enough. Intelligence alone was not enough. Humans' true advantage lay in their ability to empathize, to connect, and to create bridges between species. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Kale stood outside the main outpost, watching the Chileans' soft glow ripple across the landscape. He could feel their thoughts not in words but in rhythm, pulse, and motion. Every gesture carried meaning, every light a message. Ilara joined him quietly. "Do you ever think we'll go back to relying only on words?" she asked. Kale shook his head. "Words are useful, yes, but they will never replace what we've learned here. Communication is more than speech. It's connection. It's trust. It's seeing what isn't said." The Chileans pulsed brighter as if agreeing, and Kale mirrored their movements instinctively. Humans nearby joined in, creating a shared rhythm that was beautiful, intricate, and alive. It was a celebration of understanding, a testament to the power of observation, empathy, and adaptability. Ilara looked around the glowing outpost, feeling hope and pride swell in her chest. Humanity had discovered a lesson that could change its place in the universe. Intelligence alone did not make a species special. It was the ability to feel, to understand, and to act with compassion. As night deepened, the aliens and humans rested, their lights mingling in quiet harmony. The festival ended, but the lessons remained. Humanity had learned to speak without words, to listen without ears, and to connect across species in ways that had once seemed impossible. Kyle turned to Ilara, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Tomorrow," he said, "we'll continue exploring. There's still so much to learn, so much to understand. But we've proven that humans can bridge any gap if we pay attention and trust ourselves and others." Ilara nodded, smiling. "We're ready," she said. "Not just for this planet, but for every world out there. Because we have learned the greatest truth. Communication is more than language. It's empathy. It's connection. And it's what makes us human." The Chileans pulsed softly around them, a silent affirmation of harmony and trust. Humanity, for the first time, was not only observing life on another world, they were part of it. And in that connection, they discovered a power that words could never capture. The twin suns finally disappeared below the horizon, and the outpost was bathed in the quiet glow of alien lights. The humans and the Chileans had learned to coexist, to teach and to learn from one another. And for Kale, Ilara, and the entire crew, the experience was a reminder that the true strength of humanity was not in weapons, machines, or speech, but in the courage to listen, to feel, and to connect. And so the legacy of the human-Chilean collaboration began, not with words but with rhythm, pulse, and the unspoken language of hearts and bodies, a language that could never be deleted. and a connection that would endure for generations.